for?
Welcome to another episode of the HeatStrokes podcast.
I should have yelled too.
Hosted by Brady Kannon, presented by Mandalay Bay Resort and Casino in Las Vegas. Get ready to experience golf as you've never seen and heard it before.
The price is wrong.
Through the lens of Brady's experienced eye as he braves the toughest courses in the West under the scorching Las Vegas heat. Your course reviews, expert PGA analysis, and top weekly golf betting strategies are teed up and ready to fire. Here's your starter, Brady Kannon.
It is deadheatgolf.com, home to the HeatStrokes podcast, presented by Mandalay Bay Resort and Casino in Las Vegas. Welcome in, everybody, to episode number 20. I'm Brady Kannon, along with my friend and guest host, Matt Youmans of VSiN, the Vegas Stats and Information Network. You can catch his show with our friend Wes Reynolds Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 p.m. Pacific time. And you can also follow Matt on Twitter at Matt Youmans 24/7. Great to have you back on the program once again, Matt, for what will be our final episode. Of course, we started this project 20 weeks ago, and as the PGA Tour is on the verge of closing out its season, we too, the HeatStrokes podcast, ready to take a little break.
Brady, congratulations on 20 weeks and a very successful podcast here this season. I know a lot of people who listen to and watch your HeatStrokes podcast every week. You've done a great job with a variety of handicappers on it this year. You and I, several years ago, started the LongShots podcast at VSiN. We started that thing together, and I thought you did a great job of building that podcast up. And Wes Reynolds and Kelly Bidlin have done a nice job of carrying on the LongShots podcast at VSiN. But here at HeatStrokes, you've done a great job here this season. And I wish I could contribute more winners. This has been one of my, if not my worst golf betting years ever, 2023. I've had a lot of close calls, very few wins in terms of outrights. Only one winner on the outrights all season. It's very rare. A lot of years I have 8 or 9, 7, 8 or 9. It hasn't happened for me this year. Hopefully it can close strong with a win or two. And also, Brady, before we get going today, just want to send out best wishes to all the people in Maui who are affected by the wildfires in Lahaina. You and I have talked about the golf courses of Kapalua on this podcast and how much we love to go out there. And we've both been out there in the past couple months to Maui, and that town of Lahaina has just been devastated by the wildfires, and it's sad to see what's happened out there.
There's no doubt about it, and thank you for bringing that up. Certainly our thoughts are with the folks in the Maui, Lahaina area, and you and I both have a lot of friends out there and a lot of memories. Hopefully we'll get back to, taking a nice break there next summer again, and they're able to repair that town as best they possibly can. We will get to our plays for the BMW Championship at Olympia Fields here in the second part of the program, but first we're going to review Furnace Creek Golf Course in Death Valley, California. Yes, we have saved the hottest for the last here on the HeatStrokes podcast. Matt, you've, of course, played here on more than one occasion. I knew we were going to do this show, so I went out and played this course back in April. Temperatures were in the 80s at that time, but you're the true heat seeker. You've been out here in some serious triple-digit temperatures. Tell me what you like about this place, Furnace Creek, so much.
Well, there's a lot to like about it if you love the heat, and I do, and you do too. So I was out there. I tried to go out there on the hottest days of the summer, and basically on the course at that time, it's rattlesnakes, road runners, and you, and that's it. That's all you're going to find out there on the course. And the last time I played at Brady was actually in the summer of 2020. So it's been a few years since I got out there. But I went out in the summer of 2020 on one of the hottest days, and I think it was 117 the day I played out there, which is not, nothing drastic. The hottest day I played out at Furnace Creek, it was 122 when we teed off and 128 when we finished. And it was me and one other guy went over there and played. and he almost passed out and died, I think, in a bar afterwards. We went across the street and had a couple drinks, and he slouched over and basically passed out at the bar. And I had to drive back, to Vegas, and he was asleep the whole way. The heat knocked him out. But I love the course. First of all, it's not that difficult. It's an interesting course because there's a lot of water on it. And you wouldn't think that a golf course in Death Valley has a lot of holes that involve water, but you would be wrong. So if you go out to Furnace Creek, you're going to find, I think, a more interesting layout than you would anticipate, with several holes that feature water hazards and really sweeping panoramic views of the mountains. I love it out there. I love being out there. It's very peaceful to be out in the course in Death Valley, but you just have spectacular views. And the golf is very good at Furnace Creek. Of the 18 holes, I can't think of one hole I don't like. So I highly recommend it to anybody who loves playing in the heat. And again, Brady, I'll say this, and it's true. You can handle the heat because there's no humidity. When you're talking about 10% humidity or less, that's the type of weather I like to play in. I hate playing in the South or in the Midwest when the humidity is 90%. I'd prefer to play when it's 120 degrees and low humidity any day, and that's what you're going to get in Death Valley. I remember the last time I went over there in the summer of 2020, the lady working in the store, the pro shop was actually closed that day, and the lady working in the store said, "Well, you can take a card out, but it's too hot. I advise you not to play." I said, "Look, it's never too hot. I wish it was 130. I would play when it's 130." So I went out and played that day, Brady, and I was the only person on the course for the 4 hours I was out there.
She didn't know who she was dealing with. They have actually been playing golf here at Furnace Creek since 1927. It was just a 3-hole golf course way back when. Then they expanded it to 9 holes, and then eventually to 18 holes in 1968. And then Perry Dye, Pete's son, did a renovation in 1997, and then another renovation came around in 2017. It's really about the spectacle here for me, playing golf in the heat of Death Valley, 214 feet below sea level. As you mentioned, the course is not terribly difficult. Most of the fairways are very wide. There are a few that are a little bit more on the narrower side. The greens are pretty big. They're relatively flat. And yes, like you said, there are quite a few water hazards. It's a par 70 golf course, just over 6,200 yards from the tips. Quite a bit of natural vegetation and wildlife. The pine trees, you and I talked about this. The pine trees out there amazed me. They look prehistoric. I'm not sure what type they are, but I think much of the golf course just kind of had that back in time feel to it, like you're out there in another world. And you also mentioned the beautiful views of the surrounding mountains. When I was out there in April, they were actually snow-capped. But the experience as a whole, it's just something you've never done before, and so unique, and I really enjoyed every minute of it. You mentioned that you could probably name each one of these as your favorite hole. If you could single out just one or two favorite holes at Furnace Creek, Matt, what would they be?
Yeah, you like to ask this question every week. It's tough for me to pick a favorite hole on some of these courses. On this one, I guess I go with number 2. It's a 180-yard par 3 with water on the left. And I typically like the par 3s if they're challenging with a water hazard, or if you're hitting from elevation down into a valley. Those are typically my favorite holes. I don't really have one standout. I guess I go with number 2. But Brady, it's not BS. I actually do like all 18 holes out here. Sometimes I'll play a course and say, well, there are 2, 3, or 4, maybe 5 holes I don't like. I like all 18 holes out here, and I also play well on this course typically, so that makes me like it even more. Some courses I stink every time I step foot on it, like the Las Vegas Country Club where I live. And then other places like Furnace Creek, I play well. So I wish I could play out there more often, Brady. The day you went out there, I had to work, so I couldn't go with you. I think that you said that was in April. It's about a 2.5 hour drive from Vegas to get out there. It's worth the drive if you want to play golf and you haven't experienced it. But it is not. It does take a full day. You have to have a full day, basically, to go out and play golf. If you live in Vegas and you're going to drive out there because of the long drive. I think from where you live on the west side of Vegas, I'm sure it took you a full 2 hours to get to the course. Is that about right?
Yeah, just about exactly 2 hours. And it was fun. I'll talk about that experience here momentarily on the show. But first, I'll give you my favorite hole. And I went with a par three as well. I really liked number 14. It's a 227-yard par three. Really straightforward. The green's right out there in front of you. And it looks like a short par four. It's just this massive fairway out in front of you, running up all the way to the green. There's a bunker on both the left and right-hand sides of the green. So I pull out my 3-wood, which in Las Vegas at 2,500 feet above sea level, I usually hit about 230 yards. And I just smoked this thing in Death Valley, came up a little bit short of the green, chipped on, and then made a putt from inside of 10 feet for my par. I just thought it was such a unique hole. A lot of the holes on this golf course are relatively short, and especially on the back nine. And then you get to this beast of a par three, 227 yards from 214 feet below sea level. There's probably a lot of people that would be hitting driver off this par three hole. And that's what I really enjoyed about it, how different it was from everything else. And how often do you get to step up to a par three and bang a 3-wood off the tee? So I just really like number 14. I don't know if you remember that one.
I do remember that one. So it's a very difficult. I mean, if you birdie that hole, that's got to be handicapped as the toughest hole in the course, doesn't it? I mean, that's a very difficult hole to birdie.
It's the number 8 handicap. But you're right. I mean, how do you – now, I was playing the tips where it's 227. But how do you hit that green in regulation? That's pretty tough.
I don't know. But, yeah, I do like that hole as well. Anyway, a lot of good holes out there. It's definitely worth the trip. And anyone who hasn't been out there, give Brady a call. He'll drive you out there next year on one of the hottest days of the summer.
Well, let me ask you this. I know you've been out there a few different times. Do you have a favorite moment or a favorite story from your experience in the dead heat of summer at Furnace Creek? An appropriate name for this place, by the way, too.
It is, and you mentioned it, 214 feet below sea level. I think probably my favorite memory was the first time I ever played out here. I'm going to say, Brady, it was about 21, 22 years ago. A friend and I were gambling all night at the Barbary Coast. And about 5 in the morning, I said, hey, man, you want to drive over to Death Valley and play golf? It's supposed to be about 120 degrees a day. He goes, yeah, hell, why not? So we jumped in my Jeep Wrangler with no top in it, drove over to Death Valley at about 9 in the morning, and played 18 holes that day. And Brady, we were drinking all day, and I actually shot, I still remember, I think I shot like an 84. It was 84 or 85. And I parred the last hole. You remember that big tree that sits out in front of the green on the 18th hole?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, I hit the approach shot perfectly over that tree, arched it right over the tree, dropped it about 10 feet from the pin, and two-putted, actually, unfortunately, for par. But that was a great way to finish it that day. And, again, we were the only two guys on the course, and it was about 120 degrees that day. That was the first time I'd ever been out there, and I loved the place so much. I said, I got to make it a regular thing to come back to Furnace Creek. So even though it's a long trip out there, I try to make it. I wish I could make it every year, but unfortunately, I have not been made it every year. I probably played out there, I'll say 5, 6, 7 times, something like that. How about you? Was that the first time you played this fall?
Yeah,
spring?
that was the first time in April, my first and only time, but I will definitely go back. And in April, 80 degrees, it was gorgeous. I'll go out there and try and brave the heat with you, of course, as next summer maybe as well. But you can play this thing just about year round. Heck, in November, it's probably 75 degrees out there. So I tell you, my favorite story, though, from my first and only visit out there, I left my house at about 4:45 in the morning. I had a 7:30 a.m. start time. And you're right, a 2-hour drive from my house here on the west side. Beautiful drive, too, checking out the raw desert and the mountains that early in the morning. So I finally get there. I pull into the parking lot. I bring my bag around, and the golf shop is still closed. It's just like a little shack. And I go back to my thought of this place looking like you're going back in time. It looks, and you can identify with this, Matt, it looks like a set of an old Western movie out there, the clubhouse and the golf shop. And so finally, this guy shows up at 7 a.m. and opens up the golf shop, and I check in and I pay my fee. I got a golf cart as well. I walk back outside, and I'm just kind of waiting around with a bunch of other people that are checking in. Next thing I know, a couple minutes later, the same guy that checked me in at the golf shop runs out of the back of the golf shop, makes a dash over to the cart barn. A couple minutes later, comes screaming around the corners, comes to a screeching halt, gives me my golf cart, hands me a wet towel, says, "You're all set," runs back into the golf shop, starts checking in more people. So here's this one guy running the entire operation at 7 o'clock in the morning in Death Valley, California. It was really part of the charm of the whole place to see how this operation was run in the middle of nowhere. It was just a beautiful thing. And you probably know what I'm talking about, just the atmosphere of the place. It was not surprising to see that scene at 7 a.m. that morning.
Well, I've never been out there on a day where there's been other players, to be honest with you. Every day I've been out there, it's basically just been me and whoever I brought to the course. And I'm not sure I've ever seen more than 2 other players on the course in all the trips I've been out there, because I try to go on the hottest days. And I don't go as early in the morning as you do, Brady. So he might have been busy that day. But some of the days I've gone out there, the golf shop's actually been closed. And you have to go to the store across the street to get keys to a cart to play, because they're not anticipating any players. So, yeah, it's much different. It's I like these unique golf experiences like you're not going to get anywhere else. And, there's a course in Oceanside, California, I've told you about, Goat Hill Park. That's very unique. Furnace Creek kind of falls in that category as well. Courses that are so different than what you're going to find anywhere else are worth making the trip out to play.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And as you can probably figure out by Matt and I's commentary, Furnace Creek is not a fancy high-end golf course with all the bells and whistles. It's a very simple, basic operation, but that's really not what it's all about. It's about checking out this wild part of planet Earth that is very unique, like you say, Matt, to anything else you've probably ever seen before. I really found the landscape absolutely fascinating. I'd never been to Death Valley before. The mountains and the sand hills and the dunes. It was really something. I'd never seen nature like this before. And then you've also got, if you play there at the right time of the year, snow-capped mountains in the background. Pretty wild. In the summertime, you can play for about anywhere from $25 to $40, depending on what time you start. The rest of the year, it'll cost you about $60 to $80. And they do have a number of stay and play packages with the local hotel resorts in the area as well. You can find them online at oasisatdeathvalley.com, oasisatdeathvalley.com, and on our website, deadheatgolf.com, is one of our featured courses. You can also give them a call, 760-786-3373, and tell them the fellas from the HeatStrokes podcast sent you. We will take a quick break and be back with our picks for the BMW Championship at Olympia Fields. But before we do, a quick word from our terrific sponsors, Play Studios, Vicent Realty Group, Las Vegas Advisor, and also footballcontest.com. Use the promo code at checkout, HEAT, to save $50 at footballcontest.com. The NFL is less than 4 weeks away. You will want to get into these contests. Use footballcontest.com as your proxy and use the promo code HEAT at checkout to save $50. We'll be right back with more of the HeatStrokes podcast presented by Mandalay Bay Resort and Casino in Las Vegas in just a moment.
When the HeatStrokes crew isn't burning up the hottest golf courses in the country, playing a game we'd all spend a lifetime trying to master, they're doing something just as smoking, but a whole lot easier. They're playing My Vegas Slots. It's a top-ranked, free-to-play mobile app that lets you earn valuable real-world rewards from some amazing partners like MGM Grand, Bellagio, and Norwegian Cruise Line. You can score rooms, great meals, show tickets, and more just for playing. Download My Vegas Slots today from your favorite app store. And if you're anything like Brady and Matt, we know you're going to love it. And that's something you can bet on. Want to gamble like the pros? At LasVegasAdvisor.com, you'll find the world's best how-to books, software, and strategy cards featuring blackjack, poker, video poker, tournament play, and of course, sports betting, including 2020 sports betting. Think like a pro, which contains an 85-page section on betting golf. And don't forget to check out LVA's famous Member Rewards coupon book, offering discounts on dining and entertainment, including a buy one, get one for the awesome lobster buffet at the Palms, and more than $400 in gambling, free play, match play, and bonus offers. Up your gambling game today at LasVegasAdvisor.com. That's LasVegasAdvisor.com. Attention, all real estate buyers, sellers, and investors. Are you looking for a trustworthy and experienced team to help you navigate the Las Vegas, Southern Nevada market? Look no further than Bascent Realty Group, specializing in residential, commercial, and investment properties. With over 9 years of experience in the industry, we have the knowledge and skills to help you find the perfect property or investment opportunity. Whether you're buying, selling, or investing, we're committed to providing exceptional service and delivering results. Contact us today to take the first step towards achieving your real estate goals in Las Vegas and Southern Nevada. Call now, 702-339-8052, or go to BascentRealty.com. Have you ever wanted to play in one of the biggest football contests in Las Vegas and win $1 million or more? At footballcontest.com, find out how to sign up and make your picks through Nevada's most experienced proxy service. You do the handicapping, we do the legwork, and our service is a convenience for both locals and non-residents alike. Over the past decade, thousands have trusted footballcontest.com as their proxy service and have collected winnings of over $10 million. Whether you're a fan of 5 picks against the spread or survivor pools, footballcontest.com has all the information you need to get started. You pick the winners, we submit your picks. It's that easy at footballcontest.com.
Mandalay Bay comes alive as the Fan District, the go-to destination for all of fankind. Gather here, stay here, eat here, and celebrate here. Fans get exclusive food and drink specials, one-of-a-kind experiences loaded with giveaways, photo ops, surprise appearances, and more. And the best part? It's all within walking distance of the stadium. Get the party started or keep the party going at the Fan District. The Las Vegas Raiders will be close to that Fan District on September 24th for their home opener against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Welcome back in to the HeatStrokes podcast presented by Mandalay Bay Resort and Casino in Las Vegas. Brady, Kannon, and Matt Youmans with you. And round 2 of the PGA Tour postseason is upon us. It's the BMW Championship from Olympia Fields, not that far outside of Chicago. The North Course at Olympia Fields is where they will play. We saw this BMW Championship held at Olympia Fields in 2020. There is no cut for the event. All 50 players will play all 4 rounds, and at the conclusion of the tournament, the top 30 players in FedEx Cup points will advance to round 3, the final, the Tour Championship at East Lake Golf Club, where the winner will get the FedEx Cup and $18 million. Matt, you probably grew up not too far away from Olympia Fields, I imagine. How did you handicap this golf course and this field this week?
Yeah, Brady, you said I wore my Chicago Bulls shirt today in honor of Olympia Fields and where this is being played. So there's a couple courses in Chicago I did have a chance to go out to when I lived there that are well known. One is Olympia Fields, another is Medina.
Oh.
And Brady, you remember in 1999 when Tiger beat Sergio by 1 stroke of Medina? Oh yeah. So I actually covered that when I worked in the Chicago area that year, and that was Tiger holding off Sergio by 1, which was great because that was before I developed a strong dislike for Sergio, and that was when Tiger was on the way up, and you didn't know how dominant he was going to be at the time. But Olympia Fields is a really good golf course in the Chicago area too, and it's not going to be an easy one for these players this week. It's going to be challenging. We saw the BMW played here in 2020. And John Rahm was a winner in a playoff against DJ, and I believe he was 4 under par in that tournament. So it's going to play a little bit more like in U.S. Open, a more challenging layout this week. And the way I handicap this, Brady, is the driver is going to come into play on a lot of holes. these guys will be getting the driver out of the bag, and driving distance and driving accuracy is going to matter this week. And guys who drive it well are going to have an edge. So that was a factor, a significant factor in the way I handicapped this tournament.
Yep, I would agree with you. We saw bombers littered across the top of that leaderboard in 2020, and I think it'll be similar here. It was the hardest course to hit fairways in 2020 when they held the BMW championship there. The fairways are also bordered by 3, 4, 5-inch rough as well. And I agree with you. It's very U.S. Open like. Of course, they had a U.S. Open there a while back when Jim Furyk won his only major title. They've also had some rain in the area this week. It rained on Monday, had some rain in the morning on Tuesday, supposed to have rain in the morning again on Thursday. So that rough could be wet and moist and make things even more difficult. However, if it is soft and wet, more balls will hold in the fairway and not trickle into that rough either. Very long course at over 7,300 yards and only a par 70. You've got a couple par 5s here that are over 600 yards. Most of the par 4s fall in between the distance of 450 to 500 yards. The greens are bent grass. They're slightly larger than average tour size. And you nailed it, Matt. The winning score in 2020 was 4 under par. You only had 5 players finish under par for that entire week. And if you look at like the top 20 in that leaderboard, it was littered with bombers, like I say. Jon Rahm, your winner, in a playoff with Dustin Johnson. Tony Finau, Jason Kokrak, Joaquin Niemann. And then a little bit further down, you had Rory, Patrick Cantlay, Benny On, and Bubba Watson were also inside the top 20. Correlated courses I used this week were big boy U.S. Open type golf courses. Torrey Pines, Winged Foot, Quail Hollow, where they've held the PGA, of course, before. Caves Valley, which held the 2021 BMW. Memorial Park, where they played the Houston Open the last few years. Southern Hills, where they played the 2022 PGA. And then also TPC Boston. So use that in your handicap. Like Matt said, of course, strokes gained off the tee, distance off the tee, the long par 4s, and then some of these correlated courses and kind of that U.S. Open factor. I think you might be able to find a few players to get you where you want to be. Let's get to our guest picks, Matt. And for that, we bring in a mutual friend, Justin Ray, one of the absolute best follows on Twitter if you're a golf fan. He's got all kinds of stats and trends every week with every golf tournament. He is the head of content for the 21st group and a colleague of mine at the PGA Tour. He writes for the PGA Tour and also for The Athletic. For an outright winner, he has 2 selections. Patrick Cantlay at 10-1, a loser in last week's playoff in Memphis to Lucas Glover. And then Cam Davis at 70-1. Both of those guys definitely big hitters. For a top 5 finish, he went back to Davis at 9-1. And Tommy Fleetwood at 4-1. Interesting to note, Justin pointed this out to me. Tommy Fleetwood is the first player with more top 5 finishes without getting a win on the PGA Tour in the last 40 years. So he's betting on another top 5 for the Englishman. Top 20 finish, he's got 2 plays. Byung Hoon An, Ben On at plus 110, and Tony Finau, a top 5 finisher in 2020. At even money, and then finally a first-round leader selection on Victor Hovland at 20-1. Any thoughts, any plays that jump out at you from Justin there, Matt?
Yeah, I'm not surprised that Patrick Cantlay is on his card. I expected Cantlay to be a popular player with a lot of tappers this week off his strong charge there late in Memphis. And, he's got a positive track record at Olympia Fields. I would, if you're going to look past the favorites, I think talking about Scheffler and Rory and Rahm, Cantlay is going to be the obvious landing spot for a lot of people. And then Cam Davis, not on my card, but I can understand why you might have him or Justin might have him because Cam Davis played really well, and he was very consistent over the weekend in Memphis. He tied for 6th, 4 strokes back, and he was in the 60s all 4 rounds. And his game seems to fit this course. So not surprised at all to see Justin's plays. And I think Tommy Fleetwood again. Wes Reynolds, our buddy at VSiN, keeps coming back to Fleetwood over and over and over. And he keeps knocking on the door, and he keeps ending up the bridesmaid or in the top 5. I think the stat was or is the Fleetwood's got, what, 23 top 5 finishes without a win on the PGA Tour. Is that right?
Yeah, it's in that neighborhood, and it's the most
Okay.
in 40 years, as Justin informed me. Yeah, the guy's been knocking on the door for sure, but hasn't been able to kick it down. So you talked about, Cam Davis not making your card. Who did make your card? Let's get to your plays for this week.
Well, I'm going with the guy who won the 2020 BMW championship here, and that's Jon Rahm. I don't typically play a guy in single-digit odds. In fact, I haven't all year. This is the first time I've done it. So I'm playing Rahm at 9-1. I was going to wait to see maybe if he'd drift up around 10-1, but we'll just call it 9-1 for now. And again, distance off the tee is a big deal. If you go to Memphis last week and look at driving distance, number 1 was Rory, 324 yards off the tee. Number 2, Cam Young, 318. Who was number 5? Jon Rahm at 313. And we know Rombo is long off the tee. He had a little bit of an issue with accuracy. Recently, I've not seen him knock a couple drives into the water, and he's had some struggles with that area of his game. But Rombo won on this tournament. He won this tournament on this course in 2020. I think that was the case, right? Brady.
Yeah, I was on him that week, and you may remember that 65, 70-foot putt that he made on the first playoff hole. It was thrilling to watch, especially when I had a ticket on him.
Yeah. So Rombo's course history here, and the fact that all the stats indicate he's right there. He's had a couple bad holes here and there that kind of held him back a little bit. But I wanted to play a class guy who's long off the tee this week, but I don't want to bet Rory. I don't want to bet Rory at about plus 650 or 7-1. So let's go with Rahm. And I also played. I'll talk about this in a minute. But I also played Cameron Young, talking about the guys who are long off the tee. I think I'm a glutton for punishment here with Cam Young. We're going on a year and a half betting this guy, and he hasn't won yet. He's like Tommy Fleetwood, knocks on the door, can't knock the door down. But his game should fit this course. And again, Cameron Young, I thought played well, especially off the tee a week ago, where he's number 2 in driving distance to Rory. So let's give him a shot on a course that should tailor to his strengths. So only 2 outrights for me right now, Brady. Rombo, 9-1, and Cameron Young at 40-1.
Well, and then you did make some other plays for some finish position markets, a top 10. I know you've got a few guys there to finish top 10. And, different this week. I mean, you're not going to get the prices for top 20 because there's only 50 guys in the field. So you shortened it up a little bit and went top 10.
Yeah, Rombo, minus 110 to finish in the top 10. I like that bet. Ricky Fowler, a little quiet. Recently since he got that win, but I thought Fowler started to get it together over the weekend in Memphis. He saw it 67, 68 on the weekend, and Fowler played, I'd say, reasonably well on this course the last time he was there. So I kind of like the fact he's a little under the radar. There became a point where he became too popular, and everybody was betting Ricky, and then all of a sudden he started to fade. Well, let's go with the under the radar play, top 10 Ricky plus 250. And Sahith Theegala, another guy who drove it well last week. He finished 10 under. He finished in the top 15. And a lot of his driving stats indicate that he could pop on this course. But I played him at plus 550. He's another guy who quietly lurks around there as a threat, but hasn't quite broken through yet. And I think this is the type of course where he could. Plus 550, I thought the price was okay to play Theegala. Actually, I'll get to a little bit more on him later in this show because I wanted to take a shot on him this week. And the only matchup, Brady, you play a lot more matchups than I do. I played Rombo minus 120 over Cantlay. And I understand a lot of people are going to like Cantlay. I like Rombo a little bit better this week. So that's my one matchup. I think I was a little surprised that Cantlay choked in the playoff. I'll say he choked in the playoff like he did on Sunday when he hit into the water. But it was a strong charge for him to even get into the playoffs, so it was impressive that he got there. But I think this is going to be Jon Rahm's week on a course where he's won previously.
Yeah, I'm not going to argue with you. And our friend and former guest on the HeatStrokes podcast, Ben Coley from the UK, is also on Jon Rahm as his top play this week. And we talked about Torrey Pines being a correlated course. Rahm's won the U.S. Open there. He's won the PGA Tour event there. So no, he definitely makes sense here this week on this type of golf course. My plays, I'll start with an outright winner who I also bet for a top 10 finish, and that's Xander Schauffele. Matt, the majority of his wins on the PGA Tour have been in no-cut, limited field events, and of course, that's what we have again here. This guy's he's the best player in the field as far as U.S. Open record. I think he's got 5 or 6 top 6 finishes in the U.S. Open. He was 5th at Winged Foot in 2020. He was 10th at the U.S. Open this year, 13th this year at Torrey Pines, 2nd at the Wells Fargo. Hasn't missed a cut all season. And this is the other stat that I like about Xander Schauffele. He is 6th in this field for strokes gained total on difficult golf courses. And obviously, we have a very difficult golf course this week. I think he's going to be right there. And I thought 20-1 was a really good price. I've seen less than that. I've seen as low as 16. I think 18 is probably about the consensus number. Tyrrell Hatton, I played at 30-1. Also played him for a top 20 finish at -150. He is 4th in this field on the par 4s from 450 to 500 yards. 10th in scrambling, 2nd in bogey avoidance, great putter, and 11th in strokes gained total on difficult golf courses. And back in 2020, he finished 16th here. So he's shown that he can get around this track. I'm with you on Cam Young, Matt, for all the reasons you stated. I went pretty much with all bombers this week. My shortest hitter is probably Tyrrell Hatton, and he still bangs it out there with the big boys. I think he's probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 50th to 70th on tour in driving distance. Cameron Young, he's in the top 5. The form hasn't been perfect as of late, but he does have a 6th place finish at the John Deere and an 8th at the British Open. 3rd in this field for driving distance, 11th in strokes gained off the tee. And then another big hitter, 2nd in this field for driving distance, is Byung-Hoon An, Benny An. He was 12th here in 2020. As far as our correlated courses, he's never missed a cut at Torrey Pines. 4th in strokes gained off the tee, 9th in bogey avoidance, 14th in scrambling, and 18th on those par 4s from 450 to 500 yards. And yes, you're right. Justin and I both on Cam Davis at 70-1, and yet another bomber, 10th in this field for strokes gained off the tee, 9th in driving distance, and 5th on the par 4s of 450 to 500 yards. Been playing great as of late, as you alluded to, Matt. 3 straight top 10 finishes, a 10th, a 7th, and a 6th from the 3M Open, the Wyndham, and the St. Jude to not only get him into the playoff, but to get him here into this week, into the top 50. He'll need another big week to keep his season alive and get into the top 30, and I think he's very capable. He's been on quite a run, and, another bomber's course with the PGA Championship at Oak Hill, where Cam Davis finished 4th. So I really like all these guys this week, and your selections too. I think you just have to go with a bomber here. And then the full tournament head-to-head matchups, I landed on 4 of them. A lot of the guys I played outright. Cameron Young at -135 over Sam Burns. Ben An at -120 over Keegan Bradley. Matthew Fitzpatrick -125 over Lucas Glover. And then Tyrrell Hatton -140 over Hideki Matsuyama. Matt, I went against Lucas Glover in a head-to-head matchup last week. Obviously, that did not work. But the guy wins 2 weeks in a row, and he's not a bomber. Now, he might do really well next week at East Lake. I think that course suits his game better. But after 2 wins in a row on a golf course that ought to be very difficult for him, I'm going against Glover this week.
Well, why the hell would Lucas Glover win 3 weeks in a row? He's the first player on tour age 40 or older to win back-to-back weeks since Vijay Singh in, I think, 2008 or 2009. I cannot believe Lucas Glover has won back-to-back weeks on tour. And I wouldn't think that, after winning 2 in a row, that the guy's going to come out and have his A game this week. So I can't blame you at all. The one thing I will say, Brady, is that I mentioned this to you before. Matthew Fitzpatrick changed his name to Matt Fitzpatrick about 1.5 years ago, so quit calling him Matthew. As somebody, he did. He changed his name. He dropped it from somebody whose name Matt. I would be annoyed as hell if people called me Matthew all the time. That's his fault. He did change his name officially. He said, "Call me Matt, not Matthew," about 1.5 years ago. So you need to change that in the future. But Fitzpatrick, one thing I'll say about Matt Fitz, he's been pretty disappointing, man, since he won the U.S. Open. You keep thinking at some time this guy's going to get hot and win tournaments. He really hasn't done anything since he won the U.S. Open a year ago. Just like, Colin Morikawa hasn't done squat since he won the British Open 2 years ago.
Yeah, yep. No, I hear you. And part of the reason I like that matchup as well, not just a fade of Glover, but Fitzpatrick, obviously a U.S. Open winner. This should play like a U.S. Open course, and he also had a top 10 finish here back in 2020. Time for our Pizza Money Play of the Week, brought to you by Dom DeMarco's Pizzeria and Bar in the Summerlin area right here in Las Vegas, one of Matt's and my favorite pizza joints in town. I'm going with the 72-hole winning score over 272.5. And that means your winning score will be 7 under par or less. I mentioned there's been rain in the area, softening up this golf course, and that can make it easier, but it can also really eliminate a lot of the shorter hitters in the field who won't be able to keep up with the softer conditions and the big boys knocking it out there. They won't get as much run out on soft fairways. By the weekend, I do expect this course to dry out a little bit. You've got sunshine in the forecast basically Friday through Sunday. So if it becomes a firm and fast golf course over the weekend, that becomes extremely difficult as well. 4 under par was your winning score back in 2020, and that's when they had 70 players in the field. Now you've only got 50 players in the field, and you're saying the winning score is going to be double that? I'm not buying it. I'm going over 272.5 for my Dom DeMarco's Pizza Money Play of the Week. And Matt, I wonder what your thoughts are on that. And I guess you've got a couple of Pizza Money plays you made this week as well.
Yeah, great restaurant out there on West Charleston, Summerlin. If you get a chance to get out to Dom DeMarco's, you should do it. I love the pizza. I noticed on your graphics here, and you have outstanding graphics on this show. Your producers are the best on this podcast. But the picture of the salad, come on, let's just stick to the pizza. Stick to the pizza and meat. I could do without the salad. No, but
you know what? We'll tell the crew to eliminate the salad when you're on the show. That is certainly not up your alley, and I apologize.
That pizza is some of my favorite, though, and it's a great restaurant, great atmosphere. If you get a chance to go out there, I highly recommend it. Brady, I like your play. I was thinking about this last night, too, looking at it, and I said, I think the winner is probably going to be somewhere around what it was in 2020 when John Rahm went 4 under. I think the winner is going to be 5 under, 6 under. At the best. So what do you project the winner to be? What do you think it's going to be?
I'd be right there with you, maybe 6. I just don't think they're going to get to 8. I mean, you've got less players in the field, probably an equally difficult golf course. Yeah, I'd say 5 or 6. And who knows? Could be less than 4.
All right, my Pizza Money plays. I'm going to go with LongShots. I like to do this because I know so many bettors like to bet a little to win a lot, and you guys gave out Cam Davis's play, and that's kind of might end up being a Pizza Money type of play for me if I follow you guys on that long shot. But I've got a couple of them here. I talked about Sahith Theegala. Actually, I was really impressed by the way he was playing in Memphis, and his driving stats were pretty impressive as well. So he's long enough off the tee to be competitive here and have a shot. He was in the top 15 last week at 10 under par, just 1 stroke out of the top 10, and he was right there. He shot 67, 68, 69, 66. I like Theegala, and I found 90-1 on him at Circa. You're going to find very similar numbers in most books you look at. So Theegala at 90-1, just a small Pizza Money play. Also going to go with Patrick Rogers. Number 4 in driving distance last week in Memphis. Just a tick better than John Rahm on the board. And no, there's not a lot of reasons to like Patrick Rogers. He didn't overall play that well last week. We were talking about Matt Fitzpatrick. He was 4 over and tied for last in the field. Patrick Rogers actually tied for 52nd at 2 under par. He was right there with Sam Burns and Ricky Fowler, but Rogers did play well on the weekend. He shot 66 on Saturday, 70 on Sunday. This is a guy who's been trying to break through for a while. But again, Brady, I just focused the handicap mostly on the guys who excelled in the driving distance and driving accuracy categories, and Patrick Rogers actually fit that this week, surprisingly, by the way he drove the ball in Memphis. And at 185-1, I think that qualifies as a Pizza Money play. In a small field like this, I'll take a shot on Rogers at 185 and hope for the best. But I like a lot of the plays you have and your guests have on the podcast today.
Well, I'll tell you what, you're not alone in your love for Thagala and Rogers, both, again, big hitters on the tour. I've seen Thagala as low as about 72 or 73 to 1, and I've seen Rogers as low as 120 to 1. So good value there, certainly with the numbers you were able to land on. That is going to do it for this episode of the HeatStrokes podcast presented by Mandalay Bay Resort and Casino here in Las Vegas. In case you need to revisit, get the pics, all the information, it'll be up shortly on our website, deadheatgolf.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. A little later this evening, the video version will be out on YouTube, my YouTube channel, at HeatStrokes Podcast. Give us all the love on the socials there. I want to thank our crew, Tom Catlin on video, Jeremiah Crow with Green Roll Media on the audio, and Trifco on the creative design. Thank you to our guest host, Matt Youmans of VSiN. Catch his show Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 p.m. Pacific. Thank you to our guest contributor, Justin Ray. Find him on Twitter at Justin Ray Golf. And normally, Matt, I would say we'll be back at this time next week to review another golf course and give out our picks. But this is indeed our last episode, our final episode, 20 weeks of the HeatStrokes podcast in the books. It was you and I who concocted this idea back in January or February or whatever it was. I want to thank you very much for all of your contributions. It's been fun. And you mentioned it at the outset. I've received a great deal of positive feedback from another number of listeners and viewers. And, you know, for our first crack at this, I think we had a pretty good time and did a good job.
Yeah, you did an excellent job getting a variety of very sharp handicappers on your podcast this year, Brady. Again, I encourage everybody to get out to Dom DeMarco's, get the pizza if you have a chance, and drive out to Death Valley. Play golf if you've never been out there. When you get to Death Valley, you're going to remember to stay hot, Brady, because that's what this podcast is all about.
You've been dialed into the HeatStrokes podcast with Brady Kannon, presented by Mandalay Bay Resort and Casino in Las Vegas, and produced in conjunction with Green Roll Media, the world's premier sports betting podcast network.
Subscribing to the show on YouTube is easy. Just search HeatStrokes Podcast. Follow us on social media at Las Vegas Golfer and at HeatStrokes Pod.
If you like what you heard, please follow, like, and give us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts and Spotify today. Good luck out there sinking birdies at Cash and Tickets. Cash and Tickets. We'll see you next week.